So, Sebastian, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, absolutely, John. So as you said, my name is Sybastian.
Mhm.
I am originally from Jackson, Mississippi, so I'm a country boy,
Okay,
born
okay.
and raised, and I absolutely love it. Wouldn't have it any other way. Also, other than that, I'm a homebody. I enjoy traveling. Me and my partner, we do a lot of those things. So
Okay.
whatever normal is, that's what I consider myself. We don't know what normal is in 21,
Gotcha.
but whatever that is, man, I'm just an everyday, just an everyday guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do you identify? What are your actual pronouns that you use?
Absolutely. So my pronouns are he, him, and king. I'll take
Okay.
all those
Okay.
masculine things.
King, all right.
Right, all of those masculine things.
Okay.
And I identify as a black transgender male.
All right.
Yeah.
Is the black necessarily
The
important
black
for
is
you?
very important.
Okay.
My blackness means absolutely everything to me.
Okay. And what is your story behind that? Calling yourself king and,
Because I think
affirming the
I
blackness?
think that's what we all root from. We all should think of ourselves as kings and queens, particularly us black folks. We've been disproportionately affected by so many things for all of our lives. So I think if we set our minds on what we actually are, kings and queens, the descendants of kings and queens, we start to navigate the world and our life that way.
Awesome, awesome. So from your initial awareness of your sexuality, have you evolved regarding gender identity and, sexual identity?
Well, actually, I have. I started my transition almost, I don't want to age myself here, but I started my transition about 11 years ago.
Okay.
And it's my belief that transition never stops. We always, evolve and change, and times change, things change. So yes, I have evolved from the little boy I was 11 years ago, just starting this process, to the man you see in front of you today. So I definitely have evolved a lot since then. As it relates to my sexual identity, I do identify as queer.
Okay.
I do also am in a monogamous relationship with a cis female,
Okay.
who also understands the way to identify. And for me, queerness is important. For me to identify queerness and change the scope of what that looks like is so important on a larger scale for me, so the world can have different things to look at, or different ideas and different people to look at when we're talking about queerness and blackness together.
Okay. Now you said your transition, you started 11 years ago. That's when you actually began the journey, or?
I think I've been on this journey my whole life, my whole entire life. I was assigned female at birth, and I've transitioned into male, is what you see today.
Yeah.
But I think I've been on this journey my entire life. I cannot remember a time that I did not, before medically transition, a time that I didn't struggle with my gender identity and feeling different and sticking out and all of those things. It's been a lifelong struggle. It's been, I hate to say struggle, because there have been some very good times in there.
Right,
Don't get me wrong. But any person that feels othered or feel outside of the normal, then that does come with its own set of mental challenges. So my transition is not going to stop. It's been my entire life, in my opinion.
Okay. Now you mentioned mental challenges. Can you kind of speak to some of those challenges that you faced along the 11-year journey up until this point that you've kind of experienced?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of it is rooted in the lack of education and understanding. A lot of people don't understand what it means to identify with something different than what you see looking back at you in the mirror every day. And it's hard, sometimes to explain what that feels like, particularly for cis folks who identify with what they see in the mirror every day. And normally what I do, and the way I try to explain it, is each and every one of us has to put on something to go out every day. From the very basic can be our clothes. You got to put on clothes to go outside every day. So transition is about what I had to do, what I needed to put on to be able to go out and face the world every day, and also be successful and comfortable in my skin.
So across the world, gender roles seem to be, evolving, where, it's okay for, men to now wear dresses and wear nail polish and things of that nature. And I guess we've always had sort of a tomboy, essence within our culture. So how do you feel about the evolution of gender norms? Is it a good thing? Are we doing too much too fast? Like, what is your take on that?
It's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing that there is space for folks to express themselves however they choose to, whatever they choose to wear, to go out and do. I think that now is an amazing time to do those things, trans lives, non-binary lives, and people just living alternative is not the right word at all, but people living lives that are different than what mainstream society deems as normal, again, here's those air quotes again. I think this is a wonderful time for that. Our youth have set the tone for that. Our youth, our babies, our kids are growing up to be an amazing pleasing people, and they're showing us how to do that, how to relax a little bit and just be ourselves. So I think I appreciate it. I'm glad folks again are really able to express themselves however they choose to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell us some of the correct terms to actually use? Because I've in conversation with a friend of mine, the term tranny, is associated with sex work and things of that nature. So what are the actual terms, the correct terms that we need to use and educate ourselves on?
Absolutely. So let's be clear that sex work is not a bad thing.
Okay.
Right. So there is survival sex work, and there's people that's their bread and butter. That's how they live, and we have to do better about taking the stigma away from sex work and being more sex positive all around in many different ways.
Awesome.
But there are some words that are more affirming than others. Tranny is not one of the more affirming words. But what you want to do when you're thinking about language, you always want to get your cues from the person in which you're speaking to. Because what may be okay for me as a trans man, as a black man, may be something different for a different trans person who identifies along the gender spectrum. So what you do is you just ask them, introduce yourself. Hey, my name is John. My pronouns are he and him. 9 times out of 10, my response is going to be, hey, John, my name is Sybastian. My pronouns are also he and him. So you do those things in an affirming way, in a way that's not calling the person out, and then ask yourself, do I really need to know this person's pronouns?
Right.
Can I not just know their name and that be enough? So if there's situations where pronouns are not important or certain language is not important, then stay away from that. You can always use a person's name, and then when that person feels safe to have those type of conversations with you, because that's what it's about, right? Feeling safe and feeling like I can give you this piece of me, and I feel safe having the conversation with you about it, and it does not go any other place. A lot of things that happen with trans folks is that we start talking about being trans, and then the conversation switches to sex and how we have sex and genitalia and all of those things. That's when we have a problem. I think it's inappropriate to ask anybody about how they have sex and their genitalia. That's the same for trans and non-binary people as well. So just be respectful and just take your cues from that person. You can take visual cues sometimes. If I come to you in a suit and tie, 9 times out of 10, not all the time, 9 times out of 10, my pronouns are probably going to be male pronouns. But no one should be offended if someone asks them what their pronouns are, what language to use, but do it in an affirming and loving and caring way.
Okay. So you do feel that we do need those pronouns in terms of, okay.
I think it validates us. It gives everybody validation. Again, you don't readily know from visual. You can use visual cues, but we know that that's not always correct. We just talked about how, cis men can wear dresses and cis men can wear heels and things of that nature. So you can readily know by looking at someone how they identify. So it's okay to ask. I don't have any problem with asking. It's the way you ask. It's intent versus impact, right? And that's what you want to think about.
So would transgender, using that term, be more of a blanket statement? Is that
it is? Okay. It is. Transgender is the house. That's the way I explained it. Transgender is the house, and in that house you have different identities. You have trans women, trans men, non-binary folks, genderqueer. Those are the individual identities that people have under the house of being transgender.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. So how do you navigate your identity? Are there times where you may find, say, the whole bathroom situation? I mean, has that, during your transition, was that ever an issue for you? Did you find yourself having to, revert back to, I guess, society's heteronormative, reasoning behind what gender means?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think early in my transition, particularly identifying as a butch cis female, I did have bathroom problems, because I was a little boy, and walking into a cis women's restroom, or women's restroom, let me not say cis women because it's women's restroom, can be definitely uncomfortable for even cis butch women who are more on the more masculine side, as well as trans men. But I got to the point to where, number one, I'm passing, and passing is also kind of tricky language, and we can talk about that. But how would any cis women feel with me walking into the restroom with them? They wouldn't feel comfortable. As much as laws want to, people want to pass down laws and legislation, a lot of these things are not practical. And I wouldn't expect for a woman to feel comfortable with the man walking into their restroom. So I'm going to go to the restroom that matches the way I identify. And we all should be able to do so, And at the end of the day, it's the bathroom.
Gotcha.
It's the bathroom, right? Like it's a human process that we all have to go through. It's the restroom. Statistically, trans people are not the ones in there stealing kids and touching on folks and raping people in the restroom.
Right.
We're not. It's not us. And if we're gonna call a thing, it's old white men that do that. You know. So let's be real about it. Let's be honest about it. Trans people are not looking to target folks in a restroom. We're looking to relieve ourselves and come out of the restroom.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
So I think that our system or our society or our government legislation uses a lot of scare tactics that just aren't real, that just aren't true. I'm going to use the restroom that matches how I identify, and since I started to pass, I always have, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I always encourage other trans and non-binary folks to do the same, even if we got to have a buddy system and we got to go in there together to keep each other safe, which is sad in its own.
So those instances still happen.
Yes, absolutely. When I travel, I do a lot of traveling between here and Mississippi, and that's a drive. You know, I strategically pick out where I want to stop to use the restroom for my own safety. Normally, I only go to either a truck stop or a hotel. Any other side stores, anything like that, I don't feel safe. So I don't go, you know, and here I am 11 years into my transition and I still don't feel safe.
Wow.
And not only that, I'm black too, right? So I have to think about that as I'm navigating places in the South, you know.
Now, can you explain what passing means to those that don't know?
Absolutely. So passing means that you have successfully, I'm trying to use words that are, but for the sake of education, you pass as whatever gender that you decide to transition, right?
Okay.
Just like if you walk past me at any store, any mall, any Walmart, you wouldn't know I'm trans. You wouldn't have a clue that I'm trans. I'm just some guy, you know, walking through the Walmart. You wouldn't know. So I pass in society as a black man, and we don't get to me being trans unless I tell you that, you know.
Gotcha.
But the detrimental part of saying that language, passing, is not all trans people desire to pass, and not all trans people do pass. So there's some contention there when we're talking about passing and what people look like, and you want to make sure you affirm whatever stage people are in their process. You just want to make sure you affirm that.
Now, do you find yourself having experiencing more privileges, you know, than others that quote unquote don't pass or choose not to pass?
Yes, absolutely, and that's one of those things you call a thing. You know, I do pass as a black man, even though that has a lack of privileges in its own right. However, I'm coming from being socialized as a cis female to now being a black male, so there is definitely a privilege change there. You know, and I notice it in just everyday things, how people, you know, interact with me, how, you know, versus how they interact with my female partner.
Gotcha.
It shows up in my everyday life, so it's very obvious. Although there's not a lot of privileges being black, period,
right,
but there are privileges as a black man that I do have versus being a black cis woman.
Okay. So during your transition, so you see, can you kind of speak to some of the differences that you know experience, you know, coming from being a cis woman to being a cis man now? Or?
Absolutely. A lot of it has to deal with the workplace. We know that statistically, cis women do not get the same pay rate, do not get the same opportunities as black men do. You know, as men, period.
Gotcha.
You know, and since transitioning into a man, to more, I hate to say into a man because I've always felt male, but since transitioning to outwardly express how I always inwardly felt, the opportunities just rain down on you.
Wow.
They just rain down on you, you know, and I think it comes from the hierarchy of things in life anyway. Masculinity is always seen as this big top of the barrel, this big power thing. Anyway, so when you're talking about comparing masculinity and femininity, I think that's more what it is versus me being trans, because a lot of folks don't know that I'm trans, that I'm trans at all. You know? So that there is definitely a power shift there.
Got you. Now, the media has a lot to do with how we perceive, you know, the LGBT community as a whole. I know coming up, you know, I didn't see myself in a lot of the images that were portrayed on TV, you know, watching In Living Color and, you know, just the butt of the joke that they make, you know, used to make the LGBT community, you know, appear to be. So as I got older, you know, I was able to find, you know, that I'm able to be who I am. I don't necessarily have to, you know, be the feminine image that is projected onto, you know, most black gay men. did you find yourself having issues, trying to explain that to your family just based off of what they see on TV? That's just their perception of what, our community looks like.
Mm-hmm.
How did you kind of, challenge those thoughts and those beliefs of what's, being projected?
Just by being real and honest. Just by being real and honest with my family about my experiences, about my lived experiences, my friends' lived experiences, knowing that the things that we see on TV is not necessarily how we navigate and live our lives. It's an overplay, of how we actually live our lives. I think that it's so important to start at the ground level, is that we're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We all are human beings living this human existence, and each of us have our own wants and our own needs, and we evolve, we're diverse. The world would be so boring if we all were the same. I explain it that way too, because what someone told me one time, and I think it's so profound, that as a trans man, we have the ability to change and scope the way the world view men. The way the world view all men, because we're saying that masculinity does not have to look just this way.
Got you.
And masculinity does not just have to look this way on a gay man. It can be a range of expressions and a range of how we navigate the world. And gay men can be masculine, gay men can be feminine, and the same thing with trans men. And I think what I know there's a lot of lack of visibility there as it relates to trans men, black trans men in particular, and black trans men who also happen to be gay. Because we don't talk about, or we should talk more about, the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation.
Gotcha.
So, again, with my family and friends, I always let them know, hey, what you see on TV is not actually really the lives that we're living. We're living everyday, regular lives, and we also just happen to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community. But I navigate my life just like any other person does, and I have the same needs and the same wants just like any other person does.
Now, do you feel an acceptance within the LGBT community, or is it are you an outsider looking in certain instances?
In certain instances, I am, because being a trans person, LGBTQ are all sexual identity. Trans is not. Trans is gender identity. Okay. So sometimes it does feel like the community kind of pushes you away, and you don't identify this way anymore. You identify as a cis man or cis woman, you're not a part of the community anymore. Which is also why I hold so tight to queerness, because this community is where I started from. It's the community that I love and that I care about. All of those letters in the alphabet soup, I have a lot of care and respect for, and to feel that as a trans person, now I'm ousted from the community.
Yes.
I'm no longer a part of the community because the society doesn't look at me as a gay person anymore. When me and my partner go out, we're viewed as a heterosexual couple. And for a lot of folks, that's like, oh, you turned in your gay card. No, I didn't. That's why I hold tight to my queerness and identify with queerness, so that folks can see the range of what it looks like.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, how long have you and your partner been together?
We have been together 12 years, and we've been married for 6 of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she's been there
been there my entire transition.
Wow.
She probably could replace me and have this conversation with you. Yeah, she has. I'm privileged in that way, because I know a lot of people lose partners. A lot of people lose families. A lot of folks don't understand what this means, to transition, and transition not only physically but mentally, socially, and all of those things. And she has been absolutely amazing with taking this journey with me, and I do not take that for granted, because it does not happen for everybody.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she met you when you were a cis woman?
She did.
Wow.
She met me when I was cis woman, and within the first 30 days of us dating, I told her what my plans were. And the thing about me and my transition is not negotiable. I'm not going to negotiate the terms with anybody on my transition, to include my romantic relationships, to include my family and friends. So I told her from the jump, hey, my goal is to transition. If you want to take this ride with me, come on. If you don't, it's okay. We can still be friends. And she chose to ride with me, and here we go.
That's great. That's great. So have you... have you lost any, friends along the way, and maybe gained them as they have evolved and, matured?
I don't think I've lost any friends. I think a lot of people kind of distanced themselves because they did not want to be disrespectful. Okay. They wasn't educated on the process. They didn't know how to refer to me. And it's really hard sometimes to instantly switch pronouns or instantly switch names and start calling people, by what they prefer. I know it's a process for everybody, but you're gonna have to get on that board or you can't be a part of my life. And if that's the ultimatum that we have to make for me to be happy, I'm totally okay with it, because we all have our lives to live. You know, I don't throw my transition in people's face like, here, you have to accept this. You don't. But what you're gonna do is respect me, and then I'm gonna continue to be successful and continue to move forward in my life, and I have, you know. So those are the things that keep me moving forward, and not so much worried about the relationships that I've lost or the people that have distanced themselves, because I don't think it's me. I know it's them. I know it's not me, you know, because I'm happy with where I am. I know it's them just lacking the education, lacking what they need to feel confident to interact with me, when they can just really just talk to me. Because I'm, you know, ultimately most trans and non-binary folks, we haven't changed nothing but our appearance. I'm still, the core of me is still who I've always been, loving, nice, respectful, caring. All of those things is still who I am, you know, and that's the part that I really try to talk to my family and friends about. Yeah, I look different. I look completely different than I did 10 years ago, but I'm still the same person at the core of me.
Why Atlanta? Why did you choose to settle down here in Atlanta and make this home?
It's the Mecca. Why not? No.
Okay.
Anything from Mississippi. I was looking at the map like, okay, Mississippi, where do I want to go? Do I want to go to west? Do I want to east? I want to go. But Atlanta, I think, being young, I've always had kind of big city dreams, you know, and for me, being a little boy from Mississippi, not knowing what that looks like, and not knowing what that feels like, but knowing that I desired more, Atlanta was just the next step for me, you know, and this is not the last step for me. I want to continue to move and continue to do great things, but Atlanta just is the Mecca of all things. It's so diverse. It's the melting pot. So many people, so many wonderful people that I've met since my 12 years of living here, you know. So if it wasn't Atlanta, it probably would have been New York. I've always had big city dreams.
Big city dreams.
Yeah,
okay.
I always have.
It's a dope city, New York. But
right, it is.
I do love Atlanta.
Yes,
so.
I do. I do. I love the culture here. I love the blackness here. I'm all about my blackness.
Yes.
So this is an amazing place to be, particularly right now.
All right, King.
Yeah, all right, all right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and having this
Absolutely.
conversation with us.
Sybastian, as a male over the age of 30 of trans experience, what role, if any, do you see yourself taking in the community?
Leadership and mentorship. Leadership and mentorship. I think there are so many other youth and young folks and folks younger than me who are starting this journey, don't know what it looks like, and don't know what success looks like. You know, I want to not be cocky, but I do want to be confident and pat myself on the back that I've gotten a certain amount of success within my transition.
Yeah.
That transition did not stop me being successful, did not stop me being able to take care of my family. And I think that's so important for other trans folks to see, that you can be successful. You can go out there and live your absolute best life, and you just happen to be trans. And that's not the only thing you are. I'm trans, but that's the last thing on my list. Black first, and then there's some other amazing, beautiful, wonderful things that I know that I am before we even get down to being trans. So being a mentor, being a leader, and guiding folks and showing them what success looks like for my folks. The folks that they tell you they're not supposed to be successful. We're not supposed to have things. We're supposed to always do sex work. We're supposed to not have good jobs and not be educated. But then to see examples of that, I got education, I got a job, I'm doing all these things. I'm successfully, I have a successful relationship, a successful business. These are the things not just trans folks need to see, but LGBTQ plus period, people period need to see, that we can be successful out here.
So the visibility and representation is
Absolutely.